Disclaimer. All characters, incident, name, place, and time used in story are imaginary, and there are no relation with real-world fact. It is not our intention to harm anyone. Please note that this video is created for the audience of 18+ age only and fully entertainment purpose, not for education. The group of tourists had come to Japan to explore its cultural heritage, and they had heard rumors of an abandoned temple that was cursed. Despite the warnings of the locals, they were determined to see it for themselves. As they approached the temple, they could feel an eerie aura surrounding it. The temple was situated on top of a hill, surrounded by a dense forest. The group could see that it was old and had been left abandoned for many years. Upon entering the temple, they were met with a sense of foreboding. The atmosphere was heavy, and the silence was deafening. The group moved forward cautiously, as if expecting something to jump out at them at any moment. They explored the temple's many rooms and corridors, looking for any signs of life or history. They came across a room that was filled with dust and cobwebs, and in the center of the room stood a statue of a geisha. It was made of stone and was exquisitely carved, but its eyes seemed to follow them as they moved. The group found it strange that the statue seemed to have such an eerie presence, but they brushed it off and continued exploring. However, as they moved deeper into the temple, they began to hear strange whispers and giggling. The atmosphere became increasingly tense, and they began to feel as if they were being watched. Suddenly, they heard footsteps coming from down the corridor. They turned around but saw nothing. The footsteps grew louder, and they realized that they were not alone. The group was filled with fear and confusion. They wondered if they had stumbled upon a supernatural entity or if someone was playing a prank on them. However, they could not ignore the feeling that they were not welcome in the temple. As they prepared to leave, they heard a voice whisper, "Leave this place before it's too late." The voice was so chilling that the group decided to heed the warning and leave the temple. But little did they know that their encounter with the ghostly geisha was only just beginning. As the group continued to explore the temple, they couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being followed. They heard strange whispers and footsteps, and they saw shadows moving in the corners of their eyes. They eventually came across a room with a statue of a geisha in the center. The statue was beautiful, with intricate carvings and details. However, something about it seemed off. The eyes of the statue seemed to follow them, and they could hear a faint whispering sound coming from it. One of the tourists couldn't resist the temptation and reached out to touch the statue. As soon as they touched it, the room filled with an eerie silence. Suddenly, they heard a burst of ghostly laughter, and the room grew colder. They turned around, and to their horror, they saw the apparition of a geisha standing in the corner of the room. The geisha looked ethereal, with long black hair and a pale face. Her eyes were piercing, and she seemed to be staring directly at them. They were paralyzed with fear and couldn't move. The geisha then vanished into thin air, and they could feel a strange energy in the room. As they continued exploring the temple, they saw more apparitions of the geisha. She appeared and disappeared quickly, and they could hear the sound of her footsteps echoing through the halls. The group realized that they had been cursed by the geisha's ghost, and that they needed to find a way to break the curse. However, they couldn't ignore the fact that they were being haunted by a vengeful spirit, and they were unsure of what to do next. They knew that they had to find a way to appease the geisha's spirit and break the curse, but they had no idea how to do so. They decided to investigate the history of the temple and the geisha to try to find some answers. However, the more they learned, the more they realized that they were in deep trouble. The group researched the history of the temple and the geisha, hoping to find a way to break the curse. They learned that the temple was once home to a famous geisha who had died under mysterious circumstances. Legend had it that she had been betrayed by a lover and had cursed the temple before dying. The group also discovered that the statue they had encountered was a tribute to the geisha, and that it had been carved by her lover. They realized that touching the statue had angered the geisha's spirit and had resulted in the curse. They knew that they had to find a way to appease the geisha's spirit and break the curse. They decided to seek the help of a local priest who had experience dealing with supernatural phenomena. The priest listened to their story and agreed to help them. He explained that the geisha's spirit was angry and vengeful, and that they needed to find a way to appease her. He suggested that they perform a ritual to honor the geisha and ask for her forgiveness. The group agreed to the plan and followed the priest's instructions. They lit candles and incense and recited prayers, hoping to appease the geisha's spirit. Suddenly, they heard a faint whispering sound, and the temperature in the room dropped. The group could feel a presence in the room, and they knew that the geisha's spirit had arrived. They continued with the ritual, asking for her forgiveness and promising to honor her memory. As they completed the ritual, they saw the apparition of the geisha appear before them. She looked at them with sadness and anger, but then suddenly vanished. The group was relieved that the curse had been broken, and they left the temple feeling grateful to the priest and the geisha's spirit. However, they couldn't shake off the feeling that they had been marked by the supernatural, and that their lives would never be the same again. Despite breaking the curse, the group couldn't shake off the feeling that something was still off. They started experiencing strange occurrences in their daily lives, from objects moving on their own to hearing whispers in the middle of the night. They knew that the geisha's spirit was still haunting them, and they needed to find a way to rid themselves of it once and for all. They decided to seek the help of a renowned exorcist who had experience dealing with malevolent spirits. The exorcist listened to their story and suggested that they perform a ritual to banish the spirit from their lives. The group followed the exorcist's instructions and gathered in a room with lit candles and incense. They recited prayers and called upon the spirits to help them banish the geisha's spirit from their lives. Suddenly, they felt a presence in the room, and they knew that the geisha's spirit had arrived. The room grew colder, and the candles flickered. They could hear the sound of footsteps, and they knew that the spirit was moving towards them. They continued with the ritual, asking the spirit to leave them alone and to find peace. Suddenly, they saw the apparition of the geisha appear before them. Her eyes were piercing, and she looked angrier than before. The group continued with the ritual, and they could feel the energy in the room shifting. The geisha's spirit grew weaker, and her apparition started to fade away. Finally, the spirit vanished, and the room filled with an eerie silence. The group knew that the curse had been lifted, and that they were finally free from the geisha's wrath. They thanked the exorcist and left the room feeling relieved and grateful. However, they couldn't shake off the feeling that they had experienced something truly terrifying, and that they would never be the same again. After banishing the geisha's spirit, the group felt relieved and grateful. They thought that their nightmare was over, and they could finally move on with their lives. However, things took a turn for the worse when they started experiencing strange occurrences once again. They started seeing the apparition of the geisha in their dreams, and they could feel her presence even when awake. They knew that the spirit was still haunting them, and they needed to find a way to rid themselves of it once and for all. Desperate for a solution, they decided to seek the help of a psychic medium. The medium listened to their story and suggested that they perform a seance to communicate with the geisha's spirit. The group was hesitant at first, knowing that they were dealing with something truly terrifying. However, they knew that they had to find a way to rid themselves of the geisha's spirit once and for all. They gathered in a room with the medium and lit candles and incense. They called upon the spirits and asked for the geisha's spirit to reveal itself. Suddenly, they felt a presence in the room, and they knew that the geisha's spirit had arrived. The candles flickered, and the temperature dropped. They continued with the seance, asking the geisha's spirit to reveal why she was haunting them. Suddenly, they heard a whispering sound, and the medium started to channel the spirit. The group asked the geisha's spirit what she wanted, and she revealed that she had been wronged and betrayed by a lover. She had cursed the temple in anger, and the curse had been unleashed upon anyone who dared to enter. The group listened to the spirit and promised to honor her memory and seek justice for her betrayal. Suddenly, the spirit vanished, and the room filled with an eerie silence. The group left the seance feeling grateful for the closure they had received, but also haunted by the knowledge that they had been marked by the supernatural forever. The group felt a sense of closure after communicating with the geisha's spirit. However, they knew that they still had work to do to honor her memory and seek justice for her betrayal. They decided to investigate the geisha's past and find out who had wronged her. They went to the temple archives and found records of the geisha's life, including her diary. As they read the diary, they discovered that the geisha had been in love with a wealthy merchant who had promised to marry her. However, he had betrayed her and left her for another woman. Filled with anger and betrayal, the geisha had cursed the temple and taken her own life. The group knew that they had to find the merchant and make things right. They tracked down the merchant and confronted him about his past with the geisha. He denied any wrongdoing at first, but eventually revealed the truth. The group helped the geisha find peace by spreading the truth about her story and the injustice she had suffered. They made sure that her legacy was honored and that she would be remembered for the kind and loving person she was. In the end, the group had not only lifted the curse of the temple, but also helped a lost soul find peace. They had faced their fears and overcome the supernatural, learning that sometimes the scariest things in life are the ones we can't see. As they left the temple, they looked back one last time, feeling grateful for the experience, and knowing that they had been forever changed by the ghostly geisha of the Forbidden Temple.